and welcome. Today I want to talk about the Garmin Tactix 7 Pro. This is a smartwatch from Garmin that's been out in the market for a few years now. It features a solar panel, sapphire glass, and a plethora of other functions such as internal maps, ABC, altimeter, barometer, compass functions, pulse ox, and heart rate monitors, as well as other features that can record to your phone and work with the Connect IQ apps on your phone. Now, this watch has a lot of pros and some cons in my opinion. It's geared mainly towards the outdoor enthusiast and the fitness type of people. I am more on the edge of outdoor enthusiast, and in my job I do outdoor work quite a lot, and I do require the maps as a navigational tool asset to kind of streamline my navigation time in the field. In other words, it's basically replacing or being an addition to paper maps and land nav systems that I use for rescues and finding lost hikers in the park and just general work duty and patrol. So that's partly why I got the watch. The other reason is I do like flashlights, and this particular watch, unlike most other watches that I've seen, this model watch with the Garmin lineup, starting with the Fenix 7, has LED lights in it. And it doesn't just have white light LED, it does have colored LED lights, and this particular model has a green LED light. So I'll get into that a little bit more later on, since I'm a flashlight nerd. But I wanted to go over some features of the watch here and kind of give some thoughts on my duration of using it, which I've had it for about a week. Now, the watch itself has some protective covers on it already. It has a screen protector on it and a general cover on it around the sides. I wanted to keep it in somewhat a new condition, even though it's going to get beat up and scratched up in the field. So if you're looking at the watch, you're looking at it with a cover on it. So that's not what you get out of the box. I just want to state that right now so you're not confused. So let's go over what's on the table here. We have the box that the Tactix 7 Pro comes in, and it's a pretty decent cardboard box. It has some stuff on the inside there for the watch to mount into. It comes with its own proprietary charging cable with the USB-A charging port here, male end. You do get a nylon type of band with metal clasps here with springs on it to clasp onto the bars. So that's pretty cool. And then you also get the default rubberized type of band as well, which is good for stretchy motions, so it can kind of adapt to your hand, or wrist rather. Then you have the manual here, the Tactix 7 manual, which is just a quick start manual. And then you have some other instructions in here for safety information in various languages. And then finally, we do have the watch itself. And once again, I'll point out I do have a protector on here that I got from Amazon, so we'll take that off a little bit later when going over the watch. And we also have the glass screen protector on top of the sapphire glass. Maybe a little bit overkill, but I like to keep my sapphire in somewhat pristine condition. Here's the back of the watch. We have the second newest iteration of their sensor lineup. The newer sensors have a little bit more information and LED lights flashing in the back here. So this is sort of like an older type of sensor on the Tactix 7 Pro. It's not up to date with their newer Fenix 7 Pro lineup that they have, or the Fenix or the Tactix 7 AMOLED, which has the newer monitoring system on the back here. We have the charging port, and then we have the information on what kind of model this is. So here we can see the watch face. I took up the protective cover as it kind of covers up the titanium bezel here. It looks fairly nice and sleek. It does rise above the glass a little bit, but in this case, since I have this glass protector, which you can kind of see I placed on it almost dead center, it kind of evens out. But normally the sapphire glass is just resting below the bezel here. And you'll notice on the sides here we have two buttons here. We have a start stop button and a exit button here, or a lap. And then we have the three buttons on the side here. We have the light button, or the on button here on the top right, or the top left rather. And then in the center we have the menu button. If you hold that down, you get the menu. And then we have the down button, or the reprogrammable button here basically. You can reprogram these buttons in the system here to a different key switch selection, which is kind of nice. which I like about the Tactix 7. Now, again, I'll show you the close-up of the back here, which we just saw part of the pulse ox and the heart rate lights going on to try and detect some kind of pulse or beep. I have it on right now. We have the charging port area here for the USB plug-in, and then we have these clasps here, which you pull back on these little springs, and you can kind of disconnect the watch bands from the watch itself. So I'll try to do that without messing up too much. But as you can see, we have a strong metal piece here, and you just take the watch wristband and you can just simply pull back and clasp on into there, and it's back on. So it's quite fairly a straightforward system. I do like that. You can have this as a touchscreen type of device where you scroll up and down. But for our intents and purposes, we're going to disable that for now by holding these two buttons here on the top right and bottom left, which I programmed. And I'm going to clean the screen a little bit so you guys can see the clearest iteration of the MIPS screen. Now they have this in AMOLED, which is almost double the resolution. I think the resolution for this is about 280 by 280 or so. So it's not the best resolution out there, but it's clear in the daylight, as you can see here. And I have the backlight on 5%. Now, you're wondering about this watch face. I found this on a Reddit post last week, and it's called the TSWF04 watch face. It's an older watch face, which tends to run okay on this platform. It does have some bugs every so often, like the numbers here would freeze up maybe once or a while or so in the week that I've used it. I haven't really noticed it that much, to be honest, but it does have a little bit of some buggy error issues with the current platform. So it does work fine and adequate for my needs. It has a variety of information, as you can tell. On the top here, you can change some of these fields with this watch, which is quite nice. But basically, you have the moon phase up top. We have the mile per hour wind, the hectopascal metering, HPA, I think that's what it's called, basically the barometric pressure. In the center there, that little 45%, that's your humidity level. You can change that to wetness level or another field if you like. And then we have the location that it's getting the data from, most likely is Danbury. Newer iterations will have a little bit more of an accurate reading in terms of location. Then you have the degrees and the current weather condition on the left here in this long field. And then we have the date, our time with seconds enabled. Then we have little icons here. One on the left here out of the three icons is going to be the GPS. The center is going to be any kind of messages or notifications you have. And then the right is a Bluetooth symbol for Bluetooth connectivity, which we're connected to my phone. And we'll go over the app in a little bit with that. Then on the bottom here, we have sort of like a charging status here, basically what you've charged for each days for a 7-day period. Then we have the heart rate, which is ironically giving me a pulse right now of about 83. It's kind of measuring, I guess, my pulse from the table through the watch. I'm not exactly sure how that's working right now, but it's probably just more of a bug or an error at this point. And then you have your basic high and low for your heartbeat there on the right. And then we have, I'm not sure what this field represents. I can't remember. It might be like your stress level for the day or how much input you're putting in, and it gives you a score on there. And then we have the pulse ox percentage here on the bottom. Then we have the elevation here based on GPS coordinates. Then we have my steps here, 5,569 for the day, and the average distance of those steps, 2.69 miles, and then the goal that we want to reach, or that the goal that it sets for you for that day. And then down here we have a battery percentage, which actually has the decimal point percentage on this watch face, which I do appreciate when it comes to battery percentages. So that's the basic layout of the TSWF04. Now you can change some of these fields, like the graph here. There'd normally be a blue graph here. I changed it to a 48-hour graph, so it's not going to show a whole lot right now. But if it's a 6-hour graph up here, it shows you like the pressure levels changing. So you can change that on the fly in the settings, which we'll get into a little bit later on. Now, like I said before, you can enable and disable the touch screen here by holding down the start stop button up here and I can't read it here, but the back button on the bottom here simultaneously. So right now we're keeping the touchscreen off. There's a little bit of a motor feedback, like a haptic feedback in this watch. So it not only makes some noise, it also vibrates, so you can feel it tactilely. Now, another thing I want to point out is these buttons, they're kind of knurled in some ways, or they have texture to it, so they're not slippery. So if you're wearing gloves, and it's assumed that you might be when you're using this watch, it won't slip as much. They are recessed in a little bit, but they do stick out. In the top here, we have some protection on the button on the sides here to accidentally keep it from pushing start and stop on it, which is quite nice. So it's sort of like a buffer area on the side here for the watch. Now let's get into the watch options here. We're going to go ahead and hold down the light button, and you can modify this menu. I modified mine from the default, but basically this gets you to like the quick access menu where you can rotate the ring around. You can go to wallet, clocks, save your location. You can find your phone, which will make my phone ring and vibrate as long as it's within Bluetooth range, which is quite nice. You got do not disturb. You get the flashlight one, which we'll go over later on, but this is pretty cool. I'll just briefly jump into it. So we're set with the green LED here. You can move it up levels and whatnot and engage it. If I turn on the touchscreen, I can touch it and it'll go on, as you can see there. And then we can change the levels of brightness here, which is quite fantastic. And since I'm a flashlight nerd, I absolutely love that kind of thing. And you can tap that to turn it off, and we'll turn off our touchscreen again. And we'll push the back button here to get out of the, or rather the exit button on the bottom right here to get out of the menu. And then we can go on and continue on by pushing the rotation button here. You can use that light as a strobe light as well, which is quite fancy. If you're running at night, if this is going to be used as a running watch on sort of the street, which I do walking on the road sometimes and on the trails, this is a fantastic option to have with you as a sort of a safety feature. It's not too bright as a regular flashing light, but it is a good option to have on your watch without carrying anything extra on you. We have the touchscreen off, but you can change it in this menu here. We have sleep mode, which you can program to go on for your sleep hours, which does reduce battery operation usage or changes the face of your watch, so you can control that to a degree. We have night vision. Now this is an interesting one because since this is what they say is a tactical version, meaning it's more geared towards I guess tactical operations, law enforcement, military. I'm not military, I'm not law enforcement. I do use this in a first responder setting, but the night vision part isn't exactly something that's going to be applicable to me in my field. However, I did shoot a little bit of a video on this with the Psionics Aurora Pro, or rather just the regular Psionics Aurora, so you guys can get an idea of what a low light film camera will look like with the night vision on and off, and it does really reduce the amount of light being emitted. Night vision also disables quite a lot of other options, like the light, for example, will not go on. You won't be able to access it. In some other iterations, I think with the light, you can get lower light output. See, a flashlight is disabled while in night vision mode, so you can't use the flashlight. So night vision mode is quite interesting. We also have stealth mode, which pretty much kills all the RF coming out of the watch. I think you can still use the GPS with it. I'm not entirely sure. I haven't tested it yet, as I'm still fairly new with the watch, but I've seen reports of that being true. I will test it out later on, probably. But for now, it basically kills all the RF coming from the watch, so you don't get found out, which is a good option to have on the watch. Now we have the kill switch here. If you press that, it gives a countdown timer. Basically, it's just an easy way to reset all the data in your watch. So the idea with this being a tactical watch is if you're going to be captured or if you're in a situation where you're going to be discovered, you can delete all the information in the watch, reset it to factory default, and then it won't be able to be used as information against you or against your friends or allies. So that's an interesting feature they added a quick menu to. Now you can do that with any of the Fenix watches, but it's more of a menu driven system. So under pressure and stress, you can just simply kill the data in the watch. We have the alarm here, obviously basic alarm. I have mine set for 6:30. You can also lock this device, and then you can unlock it as well with the combination of button touches. We have the pulse oximeter, which I'll jump into. Basically, it was taking a measurement before, but it's asking you to wear it on your wrist. So I wear it right about here on my wrist to give you an idea of where it usually measures. And you can obviously tell the white mark in my tan lines, but we're not going to try again. We're going to get out of that. So, and then we have a reference point where you can add a reference point to what you're looking at and then use that as a way to guide yourself. Now, I want to be very clear about the compass on this. It is magnetically sensitive. And one of the things that I don't appreciate with modern like electronics and lights and things like that, mostly lights, but other items too, is that a lot of stuff uses magnets to attach to things, right? And the problem with that for me, being an outdoor kind of person, using navigation systems like GPSs and magnetically sensitive equipment, magnets are a bad thing. And this will be hampered by any kind of metals or magnetically charged items. And that also includes the watch metal here. If this becomes magnetized, these bars here, you're going to have a hard time getting an accurate reading from your compass on this watch. So that is kind of a con for the watch itself. Now, I haven't had any issue with that lately, personally. I just did the calibration. Part of the way that calibration works for the reference point, since we're on the reference point here, you have to have the watch go in the figure 8, and you want to do that in a place where there's no magnetism or no metal objects. So ideally out in the middle of a field or something would be the ideal spot to calibrate your compass. Kind of jumping ahead there, but so we have the setting wheel, the cog wheel. I'll just jump into that. You have like aviation settings. This thing has aviation units. I'm not an air person or pilot, but you can use this. It has nexrad tiles. You can change the nexrad vibe alert on, cross track, fuel reminder. You can clear the weather cache in it so you don't have to keep using data. So this is one of the extra features that you would not find necessarily in the Fenix 7 line, but in the Tactix lineup, which is quite useful for anybody who's doing airborne operations. We have activities and apps in here, and then obviously you can scroll down to different activities. We just went over some of these. We have the hike app. You can add stuff to here as well. So you don't just normally have just this small amount of stuff, and you can download other apps like this one, Maps for Garmin, for example. I'll click that and we can, you know, remove it or reorder it. So you can like kind of reorder it up here, make that go down or up, and you can modify where you're how quickly you can access these applications. So in other words, when you pull this up, it could be at the bottom of the list, you can access it quickly, or it could be in the middle. We don't necessarily need it right away. So here's our settings. We can set that as a favorite, reorder it. So you could do a lot of customization basically in the menus of this watch, which is what I'm getting at. So let's exit back out, and we have notifications and alerts here. So you can do smart notifications. You can have them off, on. You can change if you want just calls or text and apps, or you want to just do certain things during the activity that you're doing. You can change that too. So if, let's say you're working out, you don't want to be bothered by text messages. You can go into during activity, you can say vibration of calls, text you can change to, let's say, tone off, vibration on or off. You can, status could be off so you don't have to be bothered. So you can do stuff like that with this watch and kind of make it very customizable to your parameters basically, which is quite nice. That's one of the things that I like about this watch, is that it's highly customizable, and I haven't yet fully customized this watch itself for my own uses, but you can change the appearance. So we have different watch faces. Now this is something that's going to be interesting for most people. So on the left here, you have a little bar, you saw it just pop up, right? That kind of lets you scroll the different watch faces that we have for the watch here. So if I move down, that's a new watch face. That's the TSW F05. It's the one you can download from the IQ store. And I'll give you a link to the older watch face, this one, which I prefer much more than the other watch face, this one. So you can change through it. You can go to a lot of different customizable third-party watch faces. You can add new ones. You can go to the default Tactix one. These default ones that come with the watch themselves are fairly good for battery power. So just be advised, some of these newer watch faces, the third-party ones, they can use quite a lot of battery power, whereas these default ones may or may not use the same exact amount of battery power. So for example, this one's kind of just a basic one. There's other ones where you can tap around the watch face and access that certain thing, like say here we have battery life, barometric pressure. You might be able to tap on one of those and access that as a quick access item. Some watch faces don't work like that. Others are basic, like this one just gives you the date, your time, and the amount of steps you're doing. And also with these watch faces, you can customize these fields. So instead of just having a step count down there, you can change that to temperature. You can change it to mileage, or you can add more fields. Instead of 3 fields here, you can add like, say 5 fields of data. So you can really customize some of these watch faces and change the parameters and information on it. Now, some of them require a pay wall to get through. So basically what this is telling me here is that the unlock code is missing. Basically, I'd have to pay money to this guy who makes this watch face to get access to certain other features of this watch face. So there's a lot of customization around for this, and my favorite one that I like, that I've been showing you guys throughout the video, is the TSW F04. And the reason why I like it, it just fits all my needs perfectly, and it doesn't usually crash or bug out that much, if at all. Like maybe in the week that I've had it, maybe it's done it like maybe 2 times, if that, maybe 3 times. And I haven't really noticed it. Now, with this particular watch face, since this is an older one, designed for an older model of the Fenix lineup, or Garmin lineup, if you will, it's really kind of, it's integrated with the Tactix 7, but like I said, it does have a few bugs. Sometimes the second hand will freeze up for like maybe a 2 or 3 seconds and then skip ahead. So that there's certain quirks about this particular watch face, and it may be just my watch in particular or something that I have wrong, user error. So take it with a grain of salt, basically, is what I'm getting at when it comes to watch faces, especially third-party ones. But getting back out of that, you can change your watch face during sleep mode. Basically, if you have your sleep mode enabled, which I do from about 11 to 6:30, your watch face, that basic face, will change to like just a basic generic face. So it's in sleep mode visually speaking. But me, I like to keep my watch face the same. Backlight settings, right now I have everything on 5% because I really don't need a bright backlight. And this one, they have different settings for backlights. Like this one says during activity. You'll have one for general use, during activity, and one for sleep. So you have 3 different sections for the brightness to be changed. So during activity, I still keep it up. Everything is at 5% for all 3. So you can really customize quite a lot of things. And these glances, that's the, let me go back out for a second. So this is kind of like where you can edit your glances. So let me back out of here real quick and show you what that means. So glances is basically if you push up or down, or if you, it's enabled to touch here. If we scroll up or down, that's a glance. So you glance it, and you back down. Or you can scroll up, you glance it, and then you're back down. You can kind of get back to the main screen. Or you can do that with buttons here. So I usually do it with buttons. I'm more of a tactile person, but you can also use it with the touchscreen part, which is quite nice in a watch like this. And this does come in handy later on when you're having to input lettering and data and labeling things. So that's actually quite useful. It's actually picking up a heart rate pulse from my finger here, which is quite interesting. But basically this is your glance, right? So you're just glancing at certain things here. Heart rate, while we're here, I can show you like the last 4 hours. You can scroll, pan chart with the heart rate here. You can kind of change your settings to how much you want it to be on. You can do abnormal heart rates, broadcast your heart rate to a device. I'm assuming that's what that means. And the status is auto. So this thing can be customized to that degree. And you can pan your chart here. So you can pan it with the touchscreen. As you can see, Thursday, my heart rate was pretty low as I was sleeping for a little bit. And then it goes up and it stops a little bit because we were experimenting around with filming. But then you can kind of see it changes here on the top. So there's a lot of useful ways of navigating the menus with the touchscreen, with the glances here. So we're going to try to get back into the menu there, settings, click on that. So I'm going to use the touchscreen here so you can kind of get an idea of what I'm doing. So you have sensors and accessories. You can add different accessories to this. You can also calibrate the compass like I mentioned before. We're not going to do it now, but you can change the display. You can change the north reference to magnetic to grid or true. So that's important if you're going to navigate with this. by night or day. You can have an auto mode or GPS mode or a magnometer. So basically you have the GPS tell you if you're going north, or you can have auto, which kind of switches between the two if you're not using the GPS. We have the map selection here. You can change your map manager. You can download stuff. You can use the Wi-Fi on this, which this does have, to connect to your Wi-Fi network to download maps quicker. Outdoor Maps Plus is sort of like an extra feature I think they have, where you have to require a subscription and you get a little bit more detailed maps for it. Me personally, I don't need that. I just have the topographic maps added. I have the North American one right now. There's an update available, so I can update it if I want, and I can also add another map. So there's quite a few features with the topographic active maps. And you have course view. Again, it kind of helps you with your planning of your course. We have Middle Eastern, course view Pacific, land map, Garmin public land map. So that's nice, and it kind of alerts you to like what's public land and what isn't. So that's kind of a useful little map thing to have. We have sky view, and then we have check for updates. So you have a variety of different options in the map manager, and we'll go over that in more detail later on, but just showing you the map options here. You can change your map themes. You could have a dark, popularity, resort ski, aviation map, or no theme with the map. But let's go to map here, and this is one of the money selling features of this watch. So we're changing the option here. So you see the scroll on the right here. You kind of change if you want to go left or right with the buttons, up or down, zoom in and zoom out. You can move around with the touchscreen, or you can disable the touchscreen. So that's where the touchscreen comes in handy, is in my opinion, with the GPS here and the map. You can really kind of browse around. It takes a little bit to redraw, but that's okay, because that's to be expected for a little watch GPS. So let's again pick a spot. And GPS is locked down with that little check mark there. I'm going to scroll down, and we're going to go to the actual map here, and the map is going to show us directions, right? So you see how this kind of is auto zooming out, and you're seeing this little purple line here. It's telling you which way to go. It's snapping to the road, which I find very useful. So distance remaining, and we had the elevation change to the plotted point. So you can really kind of get an idea of what's up ahead, and that's why I like this watch. You can do stuff like that, and it comes in handy when I got to go on a rescue, and it's going to give me like a general route to get to somebody, and it's not necessarily going to tie to the road, but if there's a trail, it'll snap to the trail. So it's quite useful for what to do, and it gives you the name of the place, so it has a lot of lists and stuff. So that's why I like 38 seconds. So I push the lap button. Basically you can push a lap on here, and then you can undo that. You can discard it, so you can add laps to it. So when you're doing laps, it'll mark the laps for you if you're doing like a distance run around something. So it's quite useful. But let's go ahead and stop it and delete this and get into the other options of the watch here. So here we have the glance section again, and the way I have it lined up is the solar intensity is the first thing we have, and this kind of helps you get an idea of just how much. So we get a message here, which you can dismiss, but going back to the solar part, it tells you how much charge you're getting in the sun, and this little dial will light up basically every so often, kind of telling you, okay, you're getting a lot of solar in. Now they don't provide a static reference for what 41.6k lux hours means, so I'm not too entirely sure of how they're measuring how this actually charges the battery, and I haven't been able to find any information on the milliamp hour capacity of the battery and the voltage of the battery. My guess is, based on the LED configuration of the watch and the output power of it, it's got to be around 3.7 volts or something thereabouts. Now you can correct me if I'm wrong, but that's my guess right now with the electronics in it. Now the thing is, with anything with solar power in it, with electronics attached to it, like say for example my old Casio watch here, right, that has a battery attached to it with solar powering options around it as well. You've got to be real careful about leaving this in the sun in a very hot environment, meaning it has to be cooled down, but then it also has to be not cool down too fast where you can crack or break electronics in there, like the pressure difference, but you have to keep it moderated. In other words, don't leave this thing out on the porch for like 5 hours to charge up the battery. You're going to damage the watch and the electronics behind it because it's going to get delaminated potentially and also desoldered if it gets really hot. So you want to be careful about leaving this out in the sun. Now you can wear it in the sun, which is fine, which is what I did. It was what we have here. We can kind of scroll around and see based on the days that I've been outside. Saturday was my most solar active day for work. I did about 96.0K. Today I've done about 48.0K on a walk, and I was just testing out the charging capabilities of the watch. Now, this is not going to charge the battery up. It's going to delay the discharge of the battery, primarily speaking. So what that means is basically don't expect this to go from 91% to 100% just based on the solar alone. It's not going to do that. It's going to reduce the amount of discharge. Now, how much does it reduce? I don't know. It's very hard to tell right now with the kind of the information I have. It's hard to say, hey, this delays it by 0.3% per 2 hours of charging. It's very tough to say right now. I haven't done enough research on it. That being said, it does seem to delay a little bit. I've noticed if I'm outdoors where I'm using the GPS, for example, or just playing around using the weather widgets and whatnot, it does help out reduce and smooth out that gradient graph of like discharge. Normally a graph would be like from here and then down, and instead it's kind of like a gentle slope as opposed to a steeper slope, basically. Now, if you turn this off or you have an ultra saver mode, I have read online that people have said anecdotally, hey, it charges the battery up. I don't know if that's true. Again, we'll have to look at that later on. Now, getting into the other glance or widget or whatever you want to call it, program, the weather one is quite nice. You can jump in here, and as long as it's kind of connected to your phone, it gives you your basic weather information. Feels like 79 right now. Gives you your high and low. Gives you the precipitation and the wind direction. And you can kind of customize that by adding different locations. You can change your weather options. You can update current location, temperature, pressure. So you got a lot of options to play around with the watch here. Let's scroll down here. You have like a little menu here. As you can see there, the little dots that pop up. That basically gives you your option list, your fields, if you will, is what they call it. You can add or subtract certain fields in certain apps and stuff. In this particular one, you have all these fields here. But then you also have a sub menu in this. So you have hourly rates here from 12 to 3 o'clock, right? You push the right button, it'll slide down this little menu here, and it gives you, 1600, 1700, 6 o'clock, 7 o'clock, and then even up to 11 o'clock in 4-hour intervals. So that's what that little rotation is here in the sub menu. So we go back to the main menu, go down, and we have daily, and then we push the start stop. We don't have a sub menu, so just the main menu here. Friday is going to be a little cloudy, potentially pretty stormy based on the percentage. Saturday and Sunday are going to be good. Monday is going to be fairly good. So you kind of get a glance of the weather. You can see precipitation chance and temperature, 12-hour trend. And then you have, air quality, which is pretty good to see, relative humidity, UV index. And then we have another useful feature. And I did take a couple of pictures and video when it was raining when I was wearing this watch. So I'll try to overlay that now as I explain it. But basically, this is a weather map. And you can change the overlay on it. You can pan and zoom in and out. You can change the map kind of theme of it, kind of configure it. You can do a whole bunch of things. But basically, when you go up to play, it's going to load up 5 sets of data and rotate through the 5 sets of data. There's a little rotator indicator here, up here. You can kind of see it moving based on the time change. I think it does every 10 minutes. And it'll turn this dark screen into a white, and then you can kind of see what's going on here on the weather map. Now I have set for precipitation right now, meaning we're not going to see any cloud coverage on the map here, but you can change that. So let's go and try to change that. Let's change our overlay. So let's go to cloud coverage or temperature or wind. So let's try cloud coverage just to see what it's going to do here. And I'm going to go back into, okay, so it's still playing, so let's jump on out for a minute. And it should be loading up here in a moment for cloud coverage. And let's zoom in a little bit, maybe zoom out a bit to kind of get you a bigger view of here. This is what I like about this map section here. You can see, do so many things with it, and it's going to load up. It takes a while to load up because it's an MIPS screen, so it doesn't load as fast as an AMOLED probably, and it has low pixel rate. So I think the AMOLED might even load slower because more pixels. But yeah, we just loaded up, and we're trying to find, here's some cloud coverage on the top left. You kind of see that moving. So you can change your different fields here to kind of get an idea of what the weather is like visually speaking, which can be pretty useful in predicting weather, I found. And you can zoom in, zoom out. Let's try to zoom out to, like, say, a little bit bigger, like maybe part of the East Coast here, just to get an idea of what we're looking at. So it's going to, you can see all these different icons on the map here. I haven't figured out what these icons are yet, but it looks like a lot of fun to kind of go through the watch and discover like the new features of it. So I'm pretty excited about how this works here with the weather part, at least. It's very, very handy and very useful. So like I said, I'm going to overlay like some B-roll footage of the weather map in action when it's actually raining. And you guys can kind of see how that's working out with predictability, and if that's to your liking. But that's the weather app on here. You can download other third-party apps which make this loading process a little bit faster, in my opinion. But this does come by default with its own weather map on it, which is quite useful. So we also have sunset and sunrise. You can kind of see on the visual graph how much sunlight we're getting for most of the day and how much sunset or darkness is. So that's pretty cool to do. You can change your date, change your location, change your alerts to that. So basically I have an alert set for about 4 to 5 minutes before sunset. So I can alert hikers when sunset is, or twilight's about to begin or beginning, and get them out of the woods faster than sunset. Again, we have the heart rate, which we kind of looked over a moment ago, and the pulse ox, which is not really measuring anything. And then we have our ABC, altimeter, barometer, compass. So right now we are actually pretty accurate with the compass here. It does jump because there are magnetic fields here right now, but we're using the magnetic sensor in it. So if I put another magnetic item to it, it's going to be off. You can have it on the side here, and it will work fairly well. So let's go to the altimeter. You can scroll down the option here on the side again. Once again, it gives you a visual graph of the altimeter. You can change your calibrate it. You can manually input the data. Like for example, I know I'm about, let's see, let's go over to that. Let's go down a bit. I know I'm about 644 feet up, so I got to recalibrate this again. It's a constant recalibration here because I have it set to auto right now with the GPS, so it's a fight between the two. But it's usually on par, with the exception of about 20 or so feet off. So it's not the most accurate one that I've noticed, but it still works fairly well. And then we have the barometer, barometric pressure, 29.99. I'm not exactly sure how to read barometric pressure settings, so I can't give you info if that's good or bad or going to be raining or not. The barometric pressure is a useful item to have. You can calibrate it too. You can pan your chart. You can change your settings in it. You can plot the 48-hour. You can have storm alert on or off. I personally have it off right now, but it might be a good idea if you're in an area where there's a lot of storms to turn it on. And you have the sensor as auto mode, meaning you can kind of have it altimeter only, barometric only, or both, or sort of a mix. Let's get back to another fun item. And let's say my phone is off, right? And I want to find my phone. I mentioned this before, but there's a Find My Phone feature, which I like in here. We're going to go ahead and do that. And if it's connected to your phone via Bluetooth, we simply turn this on. You're going to watch this thing make noise. And it's also using a light. So we can dismiss. and exit. So that's what the Find My Phone feature does with the phone. It might be kind of something useful for you if you misplace your phone a lot and you're within transmission distance of it. So moving along, we do have the light section, which I want to get into, which is quite a lot of fun. So let's go ahead and turn off our lights right now. We don't have it exactly a dark day here, but we're going to get an idea of what the light looks like on the table. Okay, we're going to do a light test here with the Oppo Light Master Pro, and we have our photometry reading here, lux, CCT, which is color corrected temperature rating, and the CRI rating on the right here. Our sensors here in the center, and we have our watch here in the light mode here. We're going to turn it on to the green. There we go. We have the green going on. We're shooting an aperture 3.5 with a 1600 ISO. White balance is 5000K at 23.97 frames per second on a Panasonic GH4 with a 14 to 42 millimeter lens. Let's hold up the green light here about a foot off the table. And the lux changes to about 24 or so, and the CCT is about 6200, which is not very accurate for the green light. CRI rating is expected to be low in the 60s there. Let's go ahead and bump it to the second brightest mode, or the lowest mode for the white light. And we're not really getting a whole lot of output from this distance. Probably about maybe 3 or 4 lux at most. Not even registering on the CCT. If we bring it closer, we get a little bit more of a measurement there. Close up, we're looking at about maybe 4 inches above the meter. And we're getting about 4600 CCT and 84 CRI. Let's hold it back up to a foot and go to the second lowest mode. And we're getting about 40 lux, about 4500 CCT and 80 CRI. And then we have the second highest mode, which is about 103 lux or so. Same CCT, same CRI. And then finally we have our brightest mode, which is 150 lux or so, and about a foot away, 155. And CCT and CRI rating is the same. Let's go ahead and check the beam profile here. Let's move this off the table. And this is what we look like about 2 feet off the table with the brightest mode. And let's go back to the second brightest mode, third brightest, and then finally the lowest white light mode. We have to bring it in close to see anything. And then the green light mode, again, 2 feet off the table. So that's what you're getting with the Tactix 7 Pro. A good variety of different light outputs for different uses. Obviously the green's my most useful. The white light's very handy to have on the wrist for quick access. And again, you can use that by double tapping the light button or going into the actual setting menu and turning on and off the light. All right, so we're going to change the backlight here. It's on 5%, and we're shooting an ISO of 1600 with a white balance of 5000K, aperture is 5.6, and we have about 23.97 frames per second. Let's increase the brightness level all the way up here to roughly 100%, so you can kind of get an idea of what this looks like at 100% brightness level. So that's our screen at 100% brightness level. The colors are kind of, to the regular eye, they're pretty good. On the camera, they look washed out, which is fairly normal. But I want to say that even at 5%, you can see the screen fairly well, at least with my eyes. And I don't have too much of an issue with that. Let's take this down to 50%. So here we are at 50%. Let's go back to the main screen. And you can see what it looks like at a 50% brightness ratio. So not too much difference. The MIPS screens are not known for their color vibrancy or detail. Let's go down to 5%. Once again, you can barely see it at 5, so we can maybe up it to like maybe 30% here. And you can start seeing it fairly good at 30%. There is a blue hue on the black. It's not a true black, as you can see there. In fact, if we have a bright hue, you can compare the black to this black here up off the screen. So the next thing I want to go over is the app. This is the Connect app from Garmin. You have the Connect IQ where you can go to the store and download different watch faces, but this is the general app that you use for kind of seeing everything on your watch. You can see what last 7 days worth, 7 activities that you put in here. You can do at a glance. You can customize these screens here for showing different things. So you can see all, for example, calories burned, resting, active, sleep score, weight, all this stuff here is fairly useful information. However, it may or may not be accurate depending on what kind of sensors are active when you're using it. They're a little bit finicky from what I've noticed. Like, for example, one night I was sleeping and I got up and my heart rate was still low enough for the thing to think I was still sleeping. So I didn't really tag it as an activity. But things like that you want to keep in mind when using this app. It's not the most accurate, but it does give you somewhat of an idea of what's going on. Let's go over, let's say, Saturday, for example. Saturday, we had a lot of stuff going on. I did a lot of stuff here. Let's go over to fish kill. There was a recording that I made under the tactical setting here, and you can access the data that you recorded. And then you can bring it up on your phone here, which we can see where I started and stopped, right? And you can track your movements, and you can do different overlays. Like, for example, we can do satellite overlays, and you really get an idea of what where you were and what you were doing. Now, some of this a little bit squiggly, as I only had the GPS enabled and not necessarily all the dual bands and everything on. So I just went with the GPS in this one. It didn't burn down the battery that much. So that's why we have a little bit of a weird squiggly line here, but you can see I was on Breakneck Ridge Trail for a little bit, and you kind of see what I was doing for patrol here. So it gives you a little bit of an idea. Now, if we go to another place, or rather we go to the display screen, you can kind of just see what I wrote down for notes, distance, total time, average speed, calories, all this stuff. So it's quite useful to have that. Stats, it's pretty good. You can do laps if you want, charts, kind of see your heart rate, training effect. All this stuff in the app can be kind of useful information if you know how to use it and if you're doing pretty accurate work with it. So basically, with this watch, it's offering a way to kind of record data to your phone or record it from your watch and then put it into your phone later on. I find that's really good for people who are looking to do a lot of like exercise and a lot of outdoor activities, for just taking estimates basically. I don't have any other items to compare this to, but I want to say that probably you want to get a specific tool to measure all this data with, like instead of just a Swiss Army knife watch to kind of do that, you want to rely on other sensors and other applications. Right now I'm pushing the refresh button on here so I can refresh the data on my watch. And through this, you can update your watch and whatnot. So we can go to, let's say, the Connect IQ, for example. We can load this up into the watch, and this is where you kind of download your watch faces. So you have trending apps. I already paid for this. This is the Garmin's weather app with like a free weather thing there. You can kind of have glance watch faces installed. You can kind of get different aftermarket watch faces that are kind of cool to get. You can change them in here. You can get data-rich watch faces. You get updates available. You have data fields for runners. So this one, for example, is like an all-in-one. Kind of interesting. You click install and it'll install the face on your watch. For example, I already had this on here. I don't want to reinstall it, but you would click install and update to your watch. And you can also turn on the Wi-Fi in your watch to download faster directly to the watch instead of through the Bluetooth with your phone. So that's important to know when it comes to the updates of this watch. But I just wanted to show you like different kind of things you can get, like sun and moon, open weather widget. Let's say I like this. I want to install this, right? You can kind of get an info, get an idea of what's going on here. Let's install this weather widget. Let's allow that, queue it up. And it's going to download in a moment here, and then it's going to tell me Open Weather has been installed to your device. Say, okay, great. Let me try to find that now. So it says installing. Sometimes it'll show installing on here, but it's already on your watch. So it's kind of weird like that. Let's go to here, and let's go down, workouts, hike, bike, swim, blah, blah, blah. Settings, minute cast, and there's Open Weather. Let's click on it. Please set Open Weather API key in settings. So I don't have settings right now, but sometimes these require certain keys for you to, you have to get a free API from the Open Weather site. So I have to go to this website to get an API key to put in the settings, and then it will give me data. So there's certain apps that require something extra too. So that's one thing to be aware of when you're downloading apps into the watch here. And you only have so much space to put apps into the watch. I think you have, I want to say like maybe 32 apps I think you can put in there. There's like a limit. It kind of shows you on your device here. Here we go. So we have 17 installed software programs, or apps if you want to call them. We have 16 remaining. This is where you see space available. Right now it's like no space available on my watch. It's like 62 megabytes. That's like nothing. But you can kind of update your apps here. You can see what you got. Watch faces, device apps. So let's go back to that Open Weather widget. So it's not there. We have AccuWeather, Connect IQ Store, Dexcom. There's things I was testing out here. So I'm thinking of getting rid of this lightning calculator. So let's go and install. Let me just uninstall that. And it's going to uninstall off of here. And it won't be showing up on here anymore. So it shouldn't be. So it's now gone. So we don't have that on here anymore. So that's how easy it is to install and uninstall stuff with the watch. So let's get back to the Connect here, and I want to go to more. I'm trying to remember. We go to Garmin devices, click on Tactix Pro, and we can go into activities and apps, I think, and you can go into, like, let's say tactical, for example, right? I was showing data screens and whatnot, and you can kind of customize what you're seeing for data screens. Like, so you have, like, for this one, it's got like all this stuff in it. And this one, you can just have a map, no field layouts. You can have dual grid, time of day. Let's say we go to the time of day field in Tactics, right? So let's go here. Let's go up to tactical, and let's go to time of day. So we have one field here and one field there, right? Now you can change this layout. Let's say we want 3 fields instead. So it's going to update in real time, and it's going to show you 3 different fields there. And we have one time of day for the top, and field 2, which is the center. We can pick a whole variety of different options. Let's say we want a compass field. We want a GPS heading. So that's going to give me my GPS heading. Or let's say we don't want the GPS heading. Let's say we want something, let's say instead of GPS heading, let's get just a regular compass heading. So that's going to activate our compass. So now it's going based on the compass here. You see that? So you can change your UI system fairly easy in the watch, which is quite valuable. I'm going to go ahead and get, let's see, pace, speed, heart rate. Let's go to heart rate, for example. So in the bottom one, we can change from timer. That's my low tide alert. Let's change it to heart rate, and it's going to give me my heart rate once it goes on my wrist. So now it's changed from timer to heart rate. So I have time of day, compass heading, heart rate. Very simple. Now if we want to do the field layout, let's say, hey, let's go 3 fields, no labels. Now you just get rid of labels, you get more field screen usage without the labels. So you can really customize the data input, what you have here, and you can have as many as 8, which I personally love these kind of fields, but then you can have like focused fields. So that's actually quite useful in just narrowing down certain fields you want to get confused with, or you want to pay attention to just one thing. So that's pretty useful. You can go back and you can save it, activities, app, and it's already saved onto the watch there. So that's how you would change some of the fields in the watch to your needs. And that's one of the pros of this watch. So my final thoughts so far, having this for about a week and exploring some of the features, not all of it, but some of it, is that it does boast an impressive array of features for my uses, mainly the map navigation software and the ability to see the weather radar, and also mainly just track which direction I'm heading in the woods. That's the main feature that I like about the watch. Instead of carrying a huge bulky map and having to pull that out every single time, I do prefer the watch ability where I could just simply turn on my watch, look at it, look back at the trail and keep navigating. It makes that process much smoother. That being said, the light thing is kind of a gimmick. It does work very well. In fact, it's one of the most used features that I have found for the watch. The green is a really nice touch, and the white LEDs, being a multi-LED light source, is a very good thing to have, and it's a convenient spot to have it on my wrist, so I can still be somewhat hands-free, so to speak, when I'm doing tasks outside. So that's something to consider when it comes to this watch. The solar power part is also gimmicky as well. It does slow down the discharge rate, but there's certain problems with the watch. When you leave it in the sun, it heats up its internal components, so there's a risk with that. Now, they said it was tested for thermal resistancy. I don't know what that really means, but the lack of information on the type of LED inside of it and the type of electronics inside the watch, mainly the battery capacity, kind of leaves me wondering, if the solar is actually worth it. And I would have to say it's in the middle of the road right now for me. It does work for my needs in the field, and I'm glad to have it, but how truly effective is it, I can't say. So the other problem I have with this watch, or not necessarily a problem, but issue, I would say, is the price for what it offers. This watch on sale is about $1,099. That's it. So with tax, that comes out to about $1,200 or so, a little bit less than $1,200, and that is an exorbitant price for a watch like this. Now, it does have a lot of features that the Fenix 7 does not have, mainly the tactical features like the night vision mode, the jump mode, and several other features that you would use in the military or military style operations or tactical operations, whatever you want to call it. I think that the $800 Fenix 7 Pro Solar Sapphire model is probably a better buy if you don't need those options. And even at $800, that's quite pricey. But that being said, you would save over probably $500 or $400 on a watch. So who's the Tactix 7 Pro for? Well, it's for people who want to play around with the ballistics part of it, which costs an extra amount of money to get it, or you just simply buy it outright with the higher end model, which is another, I think, $200 something or $300 for it. This can be upgraded to the ballistics model by unlocking the software and downloading it. But aside from that, from those folks, this is really an expensive toy, in my opinion, and it does work well for what it does in my needs, but that doesn't mean it's a practical item, especially for EDC use, everyday carrying use. I plan to rotate this into my EDC use over my older watches that I have, mainly the Casio PRW 2500T, which I've been using for about 7 years now. I have a 1500T, and those are the older style solar-powered watches, which I've been using for well longer than a decade. And I've been using the solar line of Tough Solar products from Casio for many years, and they're very reliable. None of them have broken. I've never changed the batteries in any of them. So they're a reliable brand of watch. Garmin here has something that's unique, that has internal maps in it. You don't need a phone to utilize the maps, which is quite nice. And it has a GPS function in it, which is also very useful because you can use it independently of any GPS navigation system, and it's relatively okay to kind of plot and go ahead and pinpoint areas and navigation with the watch. I mean, you're doing it through a watch interface. The touchscreen is a good feature of the watch. That's a pro of the watch. It makes doing UI movements much easier. Entering in names and labeling things a little bit easier with the touchscreen. I do find that the touchscreen does turn on when you have strong amounts of water hitting the touchscreen. Even with the glass protector on, it does trigger the touchscreen. So if you're going to be in wet environments, you want to turn off your touchscreen. So that's also, it's a pro to have the touchscreen, but it's also some caveats with it. Overall, though, it's for the person who's going to be into having a pulse ox, a heart rate monitor, wants to see their maps, wants to be outdoors, and wants to have a cool little gadget light on them that they can use as a blinker when they're walking along the road as a signaling device. And bottom line, if you're not that kind of person, if you're not outdoors, you won't utilize the maximum potential of this watch because it is a solar variant. You might want to get the AMOLED variant if you want a better screen. The MIPS display on this is excellent out in the sun, but it is not very good once it is not in direct sunlight. In my opinion, it's not, compared to an AMOLED, you're much better off with the AMOLED if you plan to be indoors more with this kind of watch or tethered to USB charging port. And if you like better, higher resolution. Now, there's a trade-off with that. Might be a little bit more lag or delay redrawing the pixels when you go to the map option or when you go to scroll. So it's neither here nor there. If you're somebody who doesn't care about resolution and you want good visibility in direct sunlight, the MIPS display is a pro. If you want higher resolution, it's a con. So get the AMOLED version, and it has the newer sensor base, unlike the Solar Pro, which does not have the newer sensor. This has the second newest sensor generation, and I think the newer ones just got accepted to be ECG capable, I think is the term, or I can't remember the term, but they've been certified by the FDA to be used as a kind of a heart monitor in some ways, or at least an indication of a heart condition. But overall, though, I wouldn't pay the $1,300 for it. I don't recommend it to anybody unless they really, really want this watch. It's just way too expensive for what it offers. And it does offer a fair amount, to be fair. It does offer a good amount in a format that's rugged, that's seemingly good at integrating modular straps, and has modular ways to change the watch faces and update with programs and apps. So the updates is a 50-50 in my opinion. It could be good, it could be bad, it could break the watch, it could break your apps on it. So it's really at the mercy of the company, which is not a good position to be in my opinion. But am I happy with my purchase? I am so far. Again, I've only had it for about a week, so time will tell. Take what I say with a grain of salt, and I hope you guys enjoyed that. I know it's a very long video, and there's so much to talk about this watch, so many features about it. I just can't cover all of it in a short video, and I'm probably going to do another update on this in the future. But for now, I want to say thank you for watching, and enjoy your day.